Perfect. Okay, I am going to call to order. Let me get back up to the top of my agenda. This July 13th Town Council meeting at 7 p.m. If you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you all. Hey, we have no proclamations or presentations tonight. Public petitions, communications, and public participation on any subject within the jurisdiction of the Town Council with a 2-minute limit. If you are on a device, it is the raise hand button. If you are on the phone, it is *9. When I call on you, please state your name and address for the record. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody. So we are going to go ahead and go to public hearing items. Sorry, I can't type with my hand, so I need to take manual notes here. 6.1, consideration of a resolution appropriating $140,000 for certain school patio entrance and bus parking lot pavement improvements, appropriating $151,800 for certain parking lot pavement improvements, and appropriating $434,029 for heavy machinery and equipment acquisition, and authorizing the issuance of up to $725,829 in bonds and notes to finance the appropriations. Does anybody have anything before we open the public hearing that they would like to state? No. Mike, you want me to open up the public hearing and then you can go over it?
Sure. Well, actually, we can give a rundown. So, hi everybody, Mike Rosen, Town Manager. I'm in the room here with Lisa Hancock, our Finance Director, Bev Bellady, our Human Services Director, and Lisa Pescuzzi, our Recording Clerk. So the four doing it from the council chambers tonight with the OWL camera. So tonight's public hearing is just to basically finish out the process of the capital program for the first year, fiscal year 1. There are several pieces of equipment that are being borrowed for, and that's what the public hearing is to offer any, comments on it before we actually go out and authorize the borrowing of the money. So I'm joined here again by our Finance Director if there's any specific questions. Thank you.
Okay, with that, Steve?
Yeah, Steve Jones, I make a motion. We open the public hearing.
Lulu, I'll second it.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor? Brenda?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Lou?
Aye.
Kurt?
Aye.
I'm an aye, so that's unanimous. With that said, the public hearing is now open. If you have something you would like to state from a public hearing perspective on this item, please raise your hand or *9 on your phone. And when I call on you, you can state your name and address for the record. All right, not seeing anything. Steve, this is gonna be an easy one.
All right, Steve Jones, I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Lulu, I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Brenda?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Lou?
Aye.
Kurt?
Aye.
I'm an aye, so that's unanimous. All right, the public hearing is it's closed. Does anybody have any questions or anything that they would like Mike to answer or Lisa regarding these items? Lou?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I just, in looking through the past information and the capital expense budget, that this is something that we had prepared for, that had been proposed several months ago when we were going through the capital expenditures. And so I think it's something that the town is set for, that we budgeted for, planned for, and I think that that is something that should be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Lou. Anybody else? No? All right. I don't have anything on this one either. So Steve, if you want to go ahead.
Sure thing, Steve Jones. I make a motion that be it resolved by the Tolland Town Council that it hereby appropriates as follows. A resolution appropriating $140,000 for certain school patio entrance and and bus parking lot pavement improvements, appropriating $151,800 for certain parking lot pavement improvements, and appropriating $434,029 for heavy machinery and equipment acquisition, and authorizing the issuance of up to $725,829 in bonds and notes to finance the appropriations. A copy of the full text of the resolution is recorded following these meeting minutes approved by the Tolland Town Council on July 13th, 2021.
Lou LaBelle, second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Brenda?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Lou?
Aye.
Kurt?
Aye.
All right, then I'm an aye also. That's unanimous. Go forth and bond, Lisa. That gets us to 7A, reports of boards and committees responsible to the council. Brenda?
Good evening, Brenda Felucci here. So the first is we have the the Central Region Tourism Commission report. They have held their yearly meeting. They're very encouraged by what they're seeing. People are excited to go out and recreate again. And just as a reminder, over the summer, children up to age, I think it's 17, now I forget, can attend museums for free, along with one family member. So that's really encouraging. It's a way to get out and enjoy everything that Connecticut has to offer. For the Tolland tourism section, we continue to build a following on social media. I would like to encourage people to like and share the posts. It's a great way to partner with our local businesses, and it's a way for us to help promote them and give them some more business without going in and spending extra money. Any reach that we can help them with really gives them a higher boost on the formula. So, so that was it for the tourism. For Sustainable Connecticut, we're having bi-weekly meetings now with the fellows with Sustainable CT. Currently, I'm working on mapping of tourism, cultural, and shopping experiences in Tolland. We're working on a poet laureate. We wanted to do a junior poet laureate, but we haven't had a school age poetry slam in a few years. If that starts up again, we'll take advantage of that opportunity. I'm also working with some equity items, and that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. That then gets us to 7B, reports of town council liaisons. Back to you, Brenda.
All right. Again, Brenda Felucci here. So first, Blight is going to have their first meeting since before the pandemic. It'll be an in-person meeting on July 22nd, and they're going to be discussing what Blight is and how they're going to conduct their meetings in the future, if they're going to stay in person or if they're going to do one of the other two options. Tolland Green Historic Commission has not had a meeting yet. I believe it's next week. And Planning and Zoning had a hybrid meeting last night, I'm sorry. It was really exciting to see. We were able to see the owl in use, and we had people sharing screens both from the room and as remote participants. That worked seamlessly. You couldn't even tell the difference. There was like 95% of the meeting went absolutely smoothly. There was a couple things that I think we just have to take a look at, a few best practices. For example, if there is a side conversation happening, then in the room, that might interfere with the owl trying to pick up both the speaker and the other two people having a side conversation. It caused a couple seasick moments. And in fact, at one point, the owl decided to just look at the clock. It probably was from an echo. But,
Just gonna look at the clock.
At 10:30 at night. So
It gave up.
But it went great. I kudos to Planning and Zoning for having a successful first run. Like I said, there's probably just a couple best practices. 95% of it went great. So last night at the meeting, they reviewed updates to lots of regulations. They had their consultants there, Dr. Don, I call him, and they have a public hearing coming up that is going to go over all of the changes in the regulations. Most of them that they discussed last night were in the TVA, but they did a couple other zoning. They also took a quick look at the legislative update. Anything that was changed that was very pertinent to them, like the shalls and the shall nots and the mays, what each of those sort of mean. Mostly it was about Public Act 2129 or House Bill 6107, desegregate Connecticut. We were also asked in our packet tonight, we're taking a look at some infrastructure updates. And there was an inquiry as to whether we should solicit input from the Planning and Zoning Commission. I told them that as usual, either as individuals or as a commission themselves, they're always welcome to give us input. I didn't know if we wanted to solicit anything though, specifically for the infrastructure, the internet, I believe is something that's in the packet, or any other infrastructure that might come up, since they're looking at trying to encourage economic development in town. This might be something that pairs together pretty nicely. And I believe that is it.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Steve?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Steve Jones. The Conservation Commission had their meeting on July 8th. They had a discussion about the Donkeyville Mill property and the future access. They discussed possibly redesigning the location of the entry walkway. For those that know the area, there's kind of a dirt path right now. It's kind of already a road accessible. They're looking to possibly shift that closer to the Weigold Trail due to the fact that there is a resident that kind of shares that road, and there could be some confusion, as well as I think one of the concerns they raised is they have a lot of wildlife, llamas and other animals, and they're worried families that would walk them that way might wander off into their property to go interact with their animals. So they're having discussions about having a future site walk to see about the viability of putting it past the field and have it go that way towards the pond area. So they had a request from the American Chestnut Foundation looking to work on the Campbell property. I guess the American chestnut has been pretty devastated, but there's a potential to get it kind of revived in the area. And I guess there are some pockets of American chestnuts that are doing well in our area. So a quick reminder that I believe it's August 1st is the Conservation Commission's 5th annual townwide photo and poetry contest. That's a natural landscape photography, people photography, and poetry submissions. So you can send those in to the conservation@tolland.org. And other than that, it was mostly just general updates. They did discuss briefly their meeting format, which they're going to continue throughout the summer, having their second meetings be a site walk on a trail. So residents are encouraged to attend those if they want to get out and meet the Conservation Commission and enjoy some of the trails when the weather permits. And other than that, next Monday will be the Water Commission. And again, the 22nd will be the second Conservation Commission meeting.
Thank you. John?
Yes, thank you. WPCA did meet. This meeting took place on June 15th. I haven't had a chance to update you on this meeting yet, though. There was a car that hit a pole on Old Cat Hole Road, which caused a power surge, and it knocked out one of the main breakers, but that's all been taken care of. Everything else is okay. We got an update on 97 Gerber Drive. They paid their connection fees for their first building. And then they went over a little bit about Dunkin' Donuts. Nothing's done with the connection there, and they'll probably wait for that connection when the building is shut down, when they have their drive-through put in. That's when the connection will probably be made as well. Had an update on College View. Sanitary access to begin next week, which would be the week of June 22nd. And so hopefully we'll have another update by the next meeting on that process. And we got an update on the Vernon plant expansion by Rob Grassis. And the COVID has obviously slowed everything down, but they're doing the best we can, and things seem to be moving along. They ran into a potable water issue that they're working through right now. And that was it.
So College View is back on track then, or at least getting there?
Well, they just said sanitary access was to begin next week, which would be the week of 6/22. And I'm not sure, they haven't had another meeting since then, so I'm not sure what the progress is at this point.
Good. I'm glad to hear that it's back on track. I'd like to see that development kind of push through and become available. Thank you, John. Lou?
Thank you, Madam Chair, that the Birch Grove Building Committee has had several meetings over the past several weeks. The main thing is addressing any change orders and any other issues that we are getting to the point where we have to make some significant decisions coming up very quickly. That the biggest concern that we've dealt with at the last meeting as well as the meeting before is the fact that there are now being requests submitted by the superintendent's office as well as by other people for significant expenses. That one of them was a upgrading of the playground that was originally designed, where we had one playground that had been presented, planned, and included in the plans, and then there was a resubmit for a request for change order by the school board or by the superintendent's office to upgrade the playground area at the cost of approximately $75,000. And that caused grave concern regarding the building committee, where the concern was that we are now getting to the point where we have to make decisions about holding off funding to make sure that that other mechanical issues are addressed, where we've had some issues where the it was either the contractor or something else was miscalculated, and so the $200,000 that we had as reserves as a contingency fund are now down to probably less than $100,000 at this point, and that's between both the town as well as the contractor. So and that there's still other issues that we need to make sure of. So we're my comfort level, where I was saying before I was feeling comfortable, I'm not that comfortable anymore. But I'm joined by many other members on the building committee. We're keeping a close eye on things to make sure that we prioritize the what needs to be done, and that the school is provided a safe school, and that it's an operational, because our biggest concern right now is getting that certificate of occupancy. We don't get that, then everything is for naught. So once we get that and we get that approved, then we could start looking at the other possible expenses. But at this point, we're holding off on several large ticket change orders that are viewed by many as the nice to haves, not need to haves. And we want to make sure that we have the need to haves done before we can, so that we can make sure the school is operational before we go forward on anything else. We did not need to have a special session tonight, so that was good. So now it's just a matter of getting the information back. One of the big things that we're waiting for right now is hearing back from the state, where there's as far as for some of the expenses, including the playground and including some of the FF&E, that to see if the state is going to cover it, which well, I mean, it's not a total solution, but at least gives us some ability to see where we're going with the expenses. That's all I have at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Lou. That's helpful to hear. I appreciate that update. And you guys keeping a close eye on those change orders and the dollars that are left. Kurt?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the only meeting that I had was for the Economic Development Committee, or Commission rather. They met last Wednesday, and we had a couple representatives from the Commission on People with Disabilities, kind of starting a dialogue about getting some information out to the business community about hiring people with disabilities, and start working on a list of businesses in town that actively or looking to hire individuals with disabilities. So that was great to see, and more of that will be coming up down the pipe as we go forward with that. So other than that, pretty much a standard meeting, nothing too crazy. So that's all I got.
Perfect, thank you. And I know we'll be discussing that at the meeting on the Commission with People with Disabilities too. They're talking about HB 6121 and what we can try to do to kind of incent local businesses to hire people with disabilities. So I'm interested to see what we talk about in the commission meeting. I didn't have any meetings from the last one to this one, so I don't have anything to add. So that gets us to 8. New business, 8.1, consideration of a resolution to approve revised banking institution list.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Mike Rosen, Town Manager. Again, joined by Lisa Hancock in the room here, Finance Director. This is, it's been several years since the town last updated our banking list. Over the years, you know, banks go out of business or they merge and things like that, mostly merging. And we're requesting that we take a look at the list and update it to bring it to present day. Also, we're requesting the approval to include in our investment policy to specifically identify that the town manager or designee have the ability to keep the list updated as long as they are permissible under the town's investment policy and state statutes. So the current investment policy we have is mute to this, and it's an assumed process. The new list updates for the banking changes and adds 2 other options for allowance to invest in certificates of deposit permitted under state statute with states, you know, up to the FDIC insurance limits. So this list that's in your packet tonight on page 13 is the updated list we're requesting that the council consider updating to. I don't know, Lisa, is there anything you want to maybe add to that summary?
No, I think I would defer to questions with the exception that there are the 2 other agencies that will allow us to invest in certificates of deposit with out-of-state banks, but that would only be up to the FDIC limit, and they would also have to be very strong banks. But these other companies can broker that for us to make the connection so we could ladder CDs if we had to try to get our best return, because interest rates are absolutely horrible right now. So we're looking for the safest ways to move forward with investments the best we can, as long as we can keep it safe and liquid, and yield would be the last thing on our list. Safety is the most important.
Okay, does anybody have any question regarding the list? If you're looking for the list, it's on page 13 of our agenda. And there is some wording on page 11 regarding the different pieces of legislation for instance, the state treasurer's funds, etc. Does anybody have anything that they would like to add? Brenda?
Yes, Brenda Flusy here. Are we allowed to use credit unions? You know, local credit unions end up investing back into the community. It's a good partnership, I think. You know, like American Eagle Federal Credit Union or something like that.
As long as it's I would double check the statute, but I'm fairly certain as long as it's a banking institution that also has the insurances that FDIC backing them, which usually I think credit unions do, you would be able to do that. Again, I'm not sure about the ability to service a municipality or give very good rates, but it's certainly something that we could look at.
Okay, thank you.
So Lisa, with that question, which is a good question there, can you maybe give us a little bit of insight into how you develop this list and what specifically you're looking for? I understood you said safety and yield, of course, safety being the more primary, and then yield.
Safety, liquidity, then yield. Yield is always your last thing on the list. The list is actually the same list that we've had for years. It's just that some of the banks merged, they changed names. So we still have certain accounts with them. They had been approved many years ago. And so what we did was updated the list with the more appropriate names rather than the names that we used to have. I think one was First Niagara and Sovereign Bank we stopped doing business with because they had some issues, and we stopped using them. But so that's how it was comprised. Also with the other two agencies, they were available. We never used them. But I just wanted to get it documented into at least a more current list that people could, that staff could focus on.
Perfect, thank you. Anybody else have any other questions? No, okay, Steve?
All right, Steve Jones, I make a motion that be it resolved by the Tolland Town Council that it hereby approves as follows. A resolution approving the revised banking list as presented and authorize the town manager or designee to revise the list in the future as necessary for changes in banking or investment institutions so long as they are in accordance with the town's investment policy and state statutes pertaining to public fund deposits. Approved by the Tolland Town Council on July 13th, 2021.
This is Brenda Felici, I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Brenda?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Lou?
Aye.
Kurt?
Aye.
I'm an aye, so that is unanimous. Thank you all. It gets us to 8.2. Consideration and action on authorizing the renewal of a contract with the state of Connecticut for resident trooper services for the period of July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2023. So it is a two fiscal year contract. Mike?
Yep, that's correct. So hi, everybody. Mike Rosen, Town Manager. So we're back again. Every 2 years, we have to renew the resident state trooper agreement. It's an opportunity for them to include any new language or anything into the contract that due to changes. And if you remember last year, we actually had found an error that back in 2019, there was at one point there was a 3-year agreement that was signed, but we brought it back to 2 years. So the expiration of the contract was on July 1st of 2021. So we're just about 2 weeks into the new fiscal year. And we're looking to renew our services with the troopers as laid out in the memo, so that we would have four resident state troopers and a part-time resident trooper secretary that supports the troopers. And the other major changes, they're detailed in the memo that came from the State Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection. So this year, there had been a bill, the Police Accountability Bill, that so there's some language that was included into the contract about authority over police operations due to the Police Accountability Act. There was also mention of investigative methods, language being added about addressing mutual aid operations from when you have a big issue going on and you have troopers responding from multiple towns. This dictates how that works. And then lastly, the only other change was under the reports and records section, language has been added to clarify that the town is responsible for purchasing, maintaining, and ensuring body cameras and dashboard cameras, but not for all of the troopers. It's just for the constables of the town, of which currently we only have the school resource officer, that person. And also per the Accountability Act, it looks like we're also going to have to outfit the animal control office as well. So we're talking about 2 to 3 body cameras and dashboard cameras. So we're not talking about supplying it for the troopers, just for the constables of the community. So that's the only changes. The projections that are in your packet are accurate as of who the staff are currently. As people might move around or go out on injury or something, you might have somebody fill an opening. So, but these are what we're anticipating the costs to be, for the next 2 years, or at least for the first year of the next 2 years. And hopefully we can, come to an agreement tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mike, for that run through. I appreciate that. I do have a few questions, but I'm gonna see if anybody else has any other questions to start with. Lou?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one of the questions I have is regarding the school resource officer, where if we have to fit him with a body camera, that I believe that under the agreements that it's actually would be coming out of the Board of Education budget for that funding. Is that correct?
Yes, so, that goes into effect, I'm not sure, I think next year, but we do have to work out a system where the best thing to do, and I also have, Lisa looked into this with me as well in the past, and also talking with Kevin, but the best thing we can do is get on the same system so that the animal control officers and the school resource officer can maybe share a server or share resources with South Windsor through our IT. So we're working on that. Kevin Eklund, our administrative lead trooper, has been good. I don't believe he's on the meeting tonight. I don't see him, but we are trying to figure out what vendor can provide that service to the town, whether it's the same vendor that the troopers use at the state, or if we want to go with a standalone vendor. But yes, the funds, the resources that are tied to the school would come from the school, but we're trying to figure out a way to be cost effective so that we're not duplicating our effort, having 2 servers, two FOIAs, all that stuff. So we're trying our best, but we're not there yet, and it hasn't gone into effect yet. So we still have to figure that part out, Lou.
Okay, and then the second question I have to follow up on that, and Brenda, you're right. There's getting a little seasick here with the owl, but that's all right. Is that for again focusing on the school resource officer? Is there a dedicated car that he is assigned for us to have the dash cam fit on? Because if not, then given the fact that if he's going to basically grab any school car that's available that Dr. Willett provides him, we would have to have either one dedicated car assigned to him or potentially fit whatever cars that they have there for the school as with these cameras, because that's one of the requirements of the Police Accountability Act, is that whatever car he's using needs to have that dash camera in it.
Yes, Lou, Brian has a dedicated car, so that's not a problem.
Okay. And that's all I have at this point. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I can't help the seasick thing. That's just happening. I don't know how to fix that. I mean, it's what happened. The sound from the
Just
TV.
kind of swaying. It's like it just keeps kind of swaying back and forth.
Well, the sound is reverberating from the television, so that's why.
It's kind of grabbing that too. Yeah. Brenda?
Yeah, this is purely functional. Mike, if you face the owl and talk to the owl, it won't get the echo off of the TV as much. I know you're facing the screen that you see all of our faces on, but that means your face is turned away from us. So if someone was reading lips, they wouldn't be able to read your lips. And the sound direction is coming right from the owl, right? So yeah, it pretends it's a TV camera. I know that's going to make you more uncomfortable, but.
Okay, no problem.
All right. So I do have a couple of questions in regard to into the trooper contract here. How much of an increase is this year over year from a financial perspective? Lisa, do you happen to know?
I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but I know we factored in the first year based on the contracts that were in place with the unions for the state police, as well as an estimated fringe benefit. So I would have to get back to you with the exact estimated amounts year after year, but it would be basically their annual salary increases and their the fringe benefit increases, if any. Last year we were fortunate where they lowered it.
Okay, and Mike, for the body cams and the dashboards, for the constables and the animal control officers, do we currently have that equipment, or are we going to have to purchase that equipment?
No, we don't have that. That's the first time that animal control officers, it's a special situation here because they do issue infractions. So they do have to, because of that power authority, they do have to wear body cameras. We had legal department look into it. So that's new. We've never had that before.
I'm gonna make a note of that to bring it up. So do we have that built into the budget as we go forward?
No, Lisa, no, we don't.
Okay, and then So we're gonna have to figure out how much that is and the storage, et cetera, of all of that for the animal control, at least on the town side. And then the Board of Ed will have the school resource officer on their side. And then the last question I have is, I noticed in here there's an insurance policy from the town for $1 million for a combined single limit officer, professional liability or law enforcement liability insurance. Have we reviewed that number with the police accountability law and the ability for people to bring suit against the town if they perceive in any way that somebody does something that's offensive or what they classify as not professional from a police officer? Is the $1 million substantial?
So I don't believe that changed in this iteration. I see the bullet 1 on page 25. You know, in this iteration, I don't believe that was changed from previous iterations of the contract. We did have Rick look this over, Rick, the town attorney, but I don't know that this was necessarily looked at by, you know, insurance folks that we deal with. So, you know, I'm not sure if that'll, you know, delay this vote tonight, but if you want, we can go back to them and ask.
Is that something that we can modify if we do a review and find out that that amount needs to be higher?
I suppose, I mean, you could probably put this back on an agenda.
Oop, you muted yourself. Somebody muted you.
Oh, that's strange. I was nowhere near the mouse. I have no idea. So, yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know. I feel like you could probably put this on another agenda if you wanted to bring it back up to revise the contract. But well, don't forget any amendments, we have to also run past the state. So
Right. I'm just concerned. I just want to make sure that we have the town covered from any amount that we might need if there's any case that's brought forward, because with the police accountability law, I don't know with resident troopers, if somebody were to bring a case forward, will it go against the state contract or will it go against the town? The idea of the police accountability bill was that it would go against the town. But again, that's for town police departments. I don't know how that works with a resident trooper, so I am curious if we can find out more information on that. Lou, you have your hand raised. You might know.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't have that answer, but that's one of the questions I had, you know, with you bringing that up, is regarding subrogation by the state, where since it is resident state troopers and the Accountability Act is aimed basically for towns that run their own police departments. So if it's something that would happen with the school resource officer or animal control, then that's clearly our burden. But it's a matter of under the Accountability Act, it doesn't specify how it would go for resident state troopers. We're dealing with that in my jurisdiction as well, up in Danielson. Different towns are trying to figure that out. So I think that's something that we also need to take a look at, is the issue of subrogation and liability for the town regarding the resident state troopers, and if that's something covered under the state police and the state insurance, or if we have to bear the full brunt, even though they're not directly our employees.
And you bring up the point too that I think is relevant, Mike, and that's the animal control officer and the school resource officer. If they're being looped under the police accountability bill, does that mean, again, if somebody decides they want to sue the animal control person, do we have enough adequate coverage with that $1 million?
Okay, we can look into it. I mean, I can run it by the insurance provider. Yeah,
Is there a date pressure for us to approve this tonight?
Well, we are already in arrears a couple of weeks, but you know, I think they would understand if we're trying to do our due diligence. So it's probably okay to put this on the next agenda. So
Okay.
Kevin's not on tonight, although he and I did speak about this when we first got the notice. So we could probably wait one more meeting.
Okay, I'd be good with that because I'm really concerned about the $1 million. I just don't know that that's an adequate amount. We're in a pretty litigious point in history here. So, Brenda?
Yeah, I was just wondering if adding a small phrase there would help this move forward, where we say with at least a $1 million combined single limit police. And then we can, as long as we have the 1 million at least, and then if we feel we need to up it, we can.
I don't know how that would go because I believe this is the state's contract with us, Mike.
That's
What do you
correct,
have?
yes.
Right.
So,
Just, you know, this way, in the next 2 years, let's say something comes up and we feel that 1 million's not enough and we have to increase it, you know, we can increase it on our end. This is our liability and our payment. It's just a suggestion. I didn't know if that was going to help this move forward, move a little bit more quickly or smoothly. I don't have a preference either way.
okay, thank you. Lou?
Yeah, with regard to that last issue, well, thank you, Madam Chair, that having dealt with the state on things like this before, that they are basically, that they don't look kindly or favorably to the at least type of language, that it's got to be pretty much a set amount so that they understand what their liability is, because they're also going to be looking at it from their standpoint of calculating it out as far as what they would need to be covering and liable for. So I understand it's a great idea, Brenda, but I just don't know if it's something that the state council, the state attorneys would, the AGs would sign off on it. So thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. I think I would like to table this if we can. I just want to make sure that we have somebody looking at this from a legal perspective and that the town is covered from the animal control and the school resource officer. And if there's any kinds of liability that we have to have for the troopers, I'd just like to make sure that we have the town covered. Does anybody object to putting this off to the next meeting? Steve?
No, I don't object. I should my hand raised for that. I'm fine with tabling it to the next meeting.
Okay. All right. With that case then, Mike, do you have what you need to go back and try to figure it out?
Yeah, we'll look into the insurance angle, and we'll also look about the percentage increase year over year.
Perfect. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you. Now I gotta get back up to the top of my agenda again. Sorry. Oh, actually, let me just double check my notes and make sure I got everything that I had. That was the cameras. That was the town and managers responsible for ensuring that all town officers, personnel adhere to the provisions in the Police Accountability Act. Interfacing, technology. All right, I think I got all my questions there. Thank you very much. 8.3, consideration of a resolution to declare various equipment as surplus property within the Board of Education.
Hi, Mike Rosen, Town Manager. We were reached out to through the superintendent's office back at the end of June, that the Board of Ed at their June 23rd meeting had made a formal motion on obsolete and surplus equipment. It was a unanimous vote. And so we were forwarded that list per the Board of Ed's policy 3040. On the town side, we have a policy A176-4, which is the policy that concerning disposal of surplus personal public property. Basically, the council has the ability to verify that, or something's basically if something's obsolete, the council can declare it thus. And if it's not just obsolete, but surplus. So these equipments that are on the list tonight can be disposed of in any of the means that are mentioned, whether it's auction, recycling, or disposal. The council has the ability to declare this surplus, and then the Board of Ed can figure out what's what, with the equipment, what's surplus, what's maybe got some life left on it. And also it's worth noting that, per my discussions with the superintendent, that the Board of Ed is going to, I just want to make sure it's in the packet here. The Board of Education will be taking care of any costs in relation to disposing of the items, but any value that's garnered from auctioning or selling the items is slated to go into the Capital Non-Recurring Expenditure Fund, CNRE, which we use for capital projects on both sides, town and school. So it's sort of a good place to park the money for future usage. Just case in point, recently, if you all remember, we designated the fire marshal's vehicle surplus about maybe 2 months ago. We auctioned it. We were able to get $5,000 and we put that into CNRE. So we've had some recent experience with doing this exact measure maybe 2 months ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. So apparently room 243 in the high school has a whole lot of TVs in it. I did have a pretty simple question, I think, on this one here. And the third page of this, the Birch Grove surplus items, there are a lot of desks and chairs and et cetera on here. Is this because they're getting all new furniture and such with the building coming in, and that's why we're going through all of this? And again, as you mentioned, from a life expectancy on this, is there the ability to auction these off to anybody else that you would know of?
So I'm just going to direct this question to Bev. So Bev, the question is, all of the Birch Grove equipment that's potentially surplus, is that because they're getting new stuff in?
Yes, it is.
So
Part of
yes.
the requirement of the state that we put the new school with new equipment, and most of it was pretty outdated anyways.
But some of that might still have some useful life on it. So if they
Yeah.
auction that off, they may get some value
Yeah.
for it. So I don't know if you all heard that, hopefully, that there is some potentially some life left and they might be able to get some money for those items.
Okay. All right, Steve.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just two quick questions. Thank you, Mike, also for answering that first question, because I know I had relayed that over to you guys, I think, on Monday. In terms of the auctions, this might be a question for the Board of Education, but do residents have access to that? And or would other town departments have access to any of those materials if they're even applicable or suitable for them to use, like the fire department for any electronics, or if any of the desks for the children's room at the library? And then also just, yeah, general, do the public have access to whatever auction format they use to sell those off?
Probably. That might be a question, like you said, maybe directly for the Board of Ed, if they have a site that they use to auction. I know the only reason I'm not saying yes, because I know when there's a specialized piece of equipment, sometimes you have to give it to a specialized auction house. Like for example, the fire marshal's vehicle, we couldn't have put that publicly because it has lights and sirens and stuff. So this equipment, maybe because it's tables and chairs and desks, maybe it's not, maybe the public can bid on it. I don't have the answer. I mean, it's really up to, perhaps if Walter, somebody over there can answer that for you.
Okay, and then the second question I had, just because you mentioned the fire marshal vehicle being auctioned off, I was curious if we in general make more money than the costs of auctioning, like for them to have all this material being auctioned. I'm assuming they'd make a profit between the costs of putting it up for auction or disposal compared to what gets brought in.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know that, at least for the town side, maybe the Board of Ed side as well.
I'll take that one. For the auction, I know this year it was only a couple $100 that the company that auctioned it for us received as their share of it, and we received a little over $5,000 for the town. So we certainly made up any cost of auction. They include it in the cost of the vehicle price when it's being sold.
Okay, great, thank you.
So, and all council needs to do, I mean, you guys are designated as surplus, so the Board of Ed will handle the actual auction and how that works. But, the first step is we need to declare that it's surplus.
Steve had a really good question though, in regard to, is any of this something, ooh, I'm gonna sneeze, sorry. If any of this something we could possibly use at the fire department? I know John was like hodgepodging a bunch of TVs together a couple of years ago for emergency operations and such, but if any of these are an upgrade compared to what he has, if there's the possibility to possibly use them in town rather than auctioning them off, is that something that is a possibility?
Yeah, that is definitely something we can speak with the superintendent on, to see if any of it actually works as well. I mean, they could be obsolete and not working at all, or if there are some that work that are much better, that is something we could reallocate within the system. We have done that in the past with the library when we had the library construction done. We have reallocate some of the furniture there to other departments and desks, things like that. So That certainly is something we can make a note of and speak with the superintendent and get information out to the departments that may be eligible to look for something new.
Perfect. I would suggest also possibly looping in the rec department for the preschool program to see if they need any desks or chairs or any of these other things that are coming out of the Birch Grove schools. Possibly they can use them over at the preschool program. Lou?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just sort of address some of the issues regarding the furniture. I know that you mentioned regarding Birch Grove. That as Bev stated, and that just want to reiterate that a lot of that it comes down to where the and because I know that there was some discussion on social media regarding the issue, is that the furniture, the state is very specific and very particular since they are spending a lot of the money on various items within Birch Grove, that if it's something that doesn't meet their exact specifications, that it's rejected. And so a lot of the equipment and a lot of the items that we were hoping would be able to be reused within Birch Grove, because it's still within its usable lifespan and in good condition, that the state said basically no, that it's not something that could be used. And so that's why you see a lot of the equipment coming from Birch Grove on the list. So I just wanted to clarify that issue, but I think Bev covered it pretty well.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Okay, Steve?
All right, Steve Jones, I make a motion that be it resolved that the attached items are hereby declared surplus and may be disposed of in accordance with policy A176-4, policy concerning disposal of surplus personnel public property. Disposal and any costs for disposal of these items or cost to auction them will be responsibility of the Board of Education, approved by the Tolland Town Council on July 13th, 2021.
This is Brenda Flussi, I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Brenda?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Lou?
Aye.
Kurt?
Aye.
I'm an aye, so that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Gets us to 8.4, discussion on the American Rescue Plan dollars. Go ahead, Mike.
So hi, Mike Rosen, Town Manager. So this is a new agenda item for us. You know, we've maybe many times in the past mentioned the American Rescue Plan, but this is the first opportunity we've had to actually workshop it at a council meeting. So the American Rescue Plan is a federal policy response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Its goal is to provide fiscal recovery funds to state and local municipalities. In a lot of ways, it's a federal funding pass-through to the towns. We are getting, over the course of 2 years, we're getting a total of $4,326,206. And of that, we've already received half, $2,163,102.81. There was a misprint in the JI article that accidentally said 6.4 million. I talked to the reporter today and they accidentally added 4.3 and 2.1, but it's a total of 4.326 million. So that's the maximum. There's very, I guess I was gonna say strict guidelines about how to use the funding. It's been ever changing all for the past 6 months. Many different times we've received variations of what the money can be used for, but really it boils down to basically 4 quadrants that are potentially eligible, although it's very difficult to pin down any one particular project as being eligible. But the 4 quadrants are basically, if you have a COVID-19 related expenditure that wasn't otherwise reimbursed by FEMA or the CARES Act, that could be something that's eligible. On the revenue side, if the town as a whole had revenue gaps because of COVID-19, and there's a very specific formula that adjudicates that, you might be able to replenish your revenue using this money. You also can use it. The third possibility is for premium pay for essential workers. And the 4th category is if for infrastructure improvements, only water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure improvements, not gas. And I guess the reasoning there is that water, sewer, and broadband were all obviously very directly impacted by COVID, people staying home more, using those utilities, using internet to go to work and go to school. So those are the four basic pieces of the pie, but every single one of them has a lot of stipulations. What we did in your packet tonight is we gave you as much current information as we could so that you can help start making this conversation about what Tolland might use this money towards. Again, we only have half of it in the bank right now, but we will be getting a second tranche of it next year in the exact same amount, unless anything were to change. But we just found out last week, per the chart in your packet, that we need to have an interim report by the end of August with expenditure summary by category. So you effectively have about 1 month to figure out what you'd like to do with this money and start to make some commitments with it. And as I had mentioned, in the packet, that talks a little bit more about sort of the 4 categories I just kind of verbally told you. But we put together a staff, and actually a lot of people were instrumental in starting the conversation on the staff level about this. Many of them are in this room right now, actually everybody in this room. And Scott Lappin, who's on the phone. We talked with David Corcoran. We talked with the fire department, Eastern Highlands Health District. And what we were able to come up with is 5 options, a menu of options that we think you could use this money towards. We also had a call into Joe Courtney's office, Congressman Courtney, to see what he thought or his office staff thought about some of these potential uses. And we got preliminary thumbs up from them about this, so we're trying to figure out how to make this work. So the 5 things that we have in your packet tonight, it's a mix and match. You can do some of one, you can do some of another, you can put all the money into one, you can do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But the Eastern Highlands Health District has a request for a very small amount of money for $5,470 that would fall under the category of the revenue of the expenditures that weren't otherwise reimbursed by any other grant mechanisms. And they asked if we can kick in $5,470 to make them whole due to some expenses that were incurred to do vaccination clinics. I think that's a slam dunk. I think for $5,400, we could probably make them whole, no problem. The second item is the revenue replacement that we talked about a minute ago, and that is going to be a little bit more complicated. I don't think we have a dollar amount that we can tell you tonight is eligible for that, because it's a very convoluted calculation. And if you want, we can talk a little bit more about the mechanism, but that one, I think we're actually probably erring on that we're not going to be eligible just due to the revenues from the last couple of years. So we may have to skip that category since we don't have, some other towns may be able to eligible for this, but I don't think Tolland will be. For option number 3 is creating a broadband network in town that will specifically provide beefed up service to the business districts in the community, but also in doing so, we'll pick up about 1,500 households so that they could be eligible to have broadband service as a competitor to Xfinity, Comcast, or whatever internet provider you might have. So it would be a new network that using the money to create, network. And we have talked to a vendor, it's the same vendor that provides our fiber service for our municipal fiber. They actually mocked up a quote for us, which is, I believe, in your packet. Yes, it's in your packet. And they're saying that for 4.8 million, or for us it would be 4.3 because we can't go above our allocation. But for 4.3 million, we would pick up roughly 1/3 of the households and all of the business districts in town to have them go on broadband. And then it would be up to the individual household or business whether they'd like to opt into the service. And Surtex was pretty clear that they can provide a faster internet speed at a similar, if not less cost to some of the big technology companies that are out there, Xfinity, Comcast, et cetera. And they would manage the whole network too. They would administer it. Their administrative fee is built into the money. that could actually turn a profit, you know, depending on how many people, what the take rate is, that could turn a profit for, you know, it would basically become a utility of the community. The fourth and the fifth ones are water and sewer ideas for expansion of the sewer and the water line. The fourth one is, let's do sewer first. We were able to talk with the DPW director and have a few discussions about sewer in town. And roughly the rule is that for about $1 million, you get a mile of sewer connections. And we specifically, in mocking up an idea of how to use this money, we thought we could maybe expand the sewer service with pump station improvements were necessary, because Tolland, as everybody knows, is very hilly, so it's not flat. So you need to have pump stations for sewer. But if we were to expand the sewer service, perhaps towards Old Post Village area, or, you know, perhaps along the green and go towards Old Post, it could be cumbersome, but it could be a way for us to use some of the ARP money to expand sewer treatment in town. And then lastly, water. The specific project that we looked at doing for water line expansion is to expand the water line to Fire Station 140, which is located at 64 Crystal Lake Road. That right now, I have a map here. Right now, the water line ends right around Crestwood Road, and it would need to be extended up Crystal Lake Road and go to the fire station, roughly 0.3 miles, a third of a mile. And doing that costs about $900,000. And that includes a bunch of other things that are baked into it too, including the engineering cost, encroachment permits, a 10% contingency, and construction cost, and also state troopers, I guess. Yeah.
Well, they had traffic control.
Traffic control, thank you, traffic control. So those are the 5 broad ideas we have. I don't think we can make a good recommendation to you about what you should do. I think you need to talk about it a bit and see what makes the most sense for the community. You know, obviously, if you wanted to take care of the health district, that's a small one, but you'd have $4,300,000 still you got to figure out what to do with. So that sort of just tees up the conversation, and we look forward to hearing what you think.
Before August.
But, oh, and yes, and I mentioned before, August 31st is the deadline to start to commit to these projects.
August 31st. Okay, so there's a few things that, so if I have this right, the Eastern Highland Health District, that's just about $5,500. The revenue, will you be able to get us numbers on that one for us to review, or whether or not Tolland is applicable rather than we think we may or may not be, but will we be able to lock that down?
The unfortunate thing about that is that the fiscal year, the final revenue numbers will not be complete until the middle of September, which will be too late for this because of the accruals that have to be in place. We won't have the information until the end of when August is complete and the tax office has all their revenues calculated for the first 60 days. It's a special rule for how we have to record revenue. So unfortunately, I won't have the June 30th fiscal year end revenues in time to calculate it. I could try to take what I have so far and see if we could get a ballpark. The problem that we're going to have is, although we had a major loss, for example, in investment income this year, and we also had some loss in some of our other funds, such as the recreation fund. We had some loss areas in the ambulance area, the fire marshal area. So some of those revenues, I have some of the data on that where I could try to populate this formula and calculate at least something, but I definitely can't get the final numbers because we won't have, there's no way physically to get them until after August is complete and posted.
Okay, my second question here is on the broadband, Mike, the 4.3 million is for everything. Are we able to get different sections broken down if we don't want to do the whole thing, but we want to do like a mix? So if we don't want to dump all the money into broadband, but we want to kind of hit a few different things, is there a package out there that shows us how much for this area, how much for that area, et cetera?
Yes, on page 47 of your packet, it has a breakdown, but obviously the vendor wants to pick, and not just Certex, it could be any vendor. We probably would have to bid it out, but we worked with Certex since we know them, for they do our municipal fiber, and they were good enough to talk about the project with us. But they want to pick up for the money, they want to pick up the most bang for the buck. So if you do an area where you pick up 500 or 1,000 households, as well as the businesses in the area, you'd want to target that versus maybe some of the smaller pockets in neighborhoods in town, which maybe that's a later phase of this. So, the vendor said, if the town likes this and they see that it's good and they get, the first phase of this is done through federal money, maybe another phase will be done down the line, either for more money or you budget for it to do phase 2. So it's the first opportunity to see if this is good, if it brings businesses to town, if residents enjoy having high-speed internet for cheaper price. But on page 47, it talks about what you get for that 4.3 million. And I guess we could scale it so that, if you need to go to 2 million, what you pick up maybe is only half of what's listed there, or you target just the businesses and not the neighborhoods. But it would be a shame to put in that infrastructure and not get the residents up to have this as well.
Right. So I have two things that I would like to bring up before we open up questions. One, there was a bill that was passed at a statewide broadband program that was coming from the state of Connecticut with funding for expanding broadband to areas that do not currently have it. So I'm wondering how much overlap there is between that bill that was passed and and this plan here. And then secondly, from the water perspective, looking at the map here, and while I would agree to bringing it down to 140 for the fire station, I'm wondering, as I look at this here, it looks like we have public water over to Charter Road. I'm wondering how much it would cost to extend this over to the vineyards where we're having all the problems with the potable drinking water, and what that expansion would look like and a cost for that area, which might help those residents with the well issues that we're having with DEP. And on a second thing with that, I have a meeting coming up very soon with Jamie Foster, who's the rep in Ellington, and myself with the governor to talk about getting ARPA money at the state level to help with the well contamination, because Ellington has some contamination like we have with the road salt and such, and they also have runoff from the tobacco fields. So we're both going to be meeting to see if there is any availability for funding from them to handle expansion of public water to the contaminated well areas. So with that in mind, the broadband and the water, well, I think both of them are good. I'd like to also see what the state is going to have available to us. And I can try to get that. We're going into session tomorrow, so I can see if I can pull some information together from some of the governor's people tomorrow regarding the broadband and the water expansion possibilities that we might be able to factor in here. And the last thing I have is, do we have to have a plan for the whole 4.3 million or just the first 2 point something million?
It's, we think it's the whole amount.
The whole amount? Okay. Kurt?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think you kind of answered my question, but the three projects that you would listed, the broadband, sewer, and water, those would be independent. You kind of just pick one of those. Is that, would I misunderstand when you were talking about that?
I think we could pick a portion of them. Like if we wanted to do the 900,000 for the water and $1 million of sewer, a mile of sewer expansion, and then $2 million of broadband.
Okay.
I think it's like we could do all of one or like, it's a menu, I guess, from what Mike was saying.
That's correct. The only downside to having 3 to 4 projects is that now you're going to have 3 to 4 bids going out. It's a lot of oversight on all of these projects, especially if they're construction. They're subject to prevailing wage and things like that. So it would be a lot simpler, so to speak, if it was maybe 1 or 2 projects or even just 1 project. But if you want to spread the money around, it's certainly an option.
Mhm. And expanding the sewer, is that that would help our sewer rates also, correct? If we get more people on the sewer lines, that would help reduce our rates per household.
I see Scott opened his microphone. I think he wants to reply.
Yeah.
Hey Scott, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good.
When we, when Mike and Lisa and Bev and I discussed this, just for an example, for us to go over to the old post village because of the and fire, probably around $600,000 pump station. We also have to run a force main from there back to the intersection of Merrill Road and Old Post, where it would then turn to Gravity. It would make sense to run an additional pipe from Old Post all the way over to where it could turn to Gravity on 74 and go down to the pump station. So those homes that are on Carriage Road would be able to tie in, as well as the like TN and the Jail Museum, the Red and White, all those places. And just ballparking it, you're looking at probably $2 million, roughly.
That's just to get over to the old post village.
That's to go, yes, to pick up those homes on the green, that first section of the green, the Red and White, TN, the Jail Museum, and Old Post Village, probably close to $2 million. And if you stop and think about it, there's maybe 6 homes.
Yeah, there's not a lot.
No, and when you're talking about an average of $1,000 per year per home, you're not getting the best bang for your buck.
Yeah.
By any means.
Yeah, that's not a lot. That's not a big hit there.
No.
Lou?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just building on some of the questions that have already been presented. First off, I agree with you, Madam Chair, that my biggest support would be is running some of these water lines to the people that need it with the issues regarding the tainted wells and potable drinking water. I think that's out of anything, that would be my first and foremost concern, because while, again, looking at all the other things, these are nice to haves, but potable water is a need to have. And that's something I think that is very significant for the people with well issues, that if we can help them out with running some of these water lines, that would be my first preference. Questions I do have, though, are regarding, and this would be, I'm directing to Lisa and Mike, is given some of the issues regarding loss of revenues within with the crumbling foundations and things like that, is there any way that we could possibly tie any of those lost revenues in for reimbursement through the ARP fund? I mean, just sort of looking at that. And then this, a second issue would be, is for the broadband that Mike, you mentioned about the possibility of turning it into like basically a town utility, and then looking at possibly making funds or getting revenue off the broadband. Could we get a projection as far as, how long it would take for something like that to occur, and what type of revenue we'd be looking at to see if it's something that would be a revenue source for the town that would be worthwhile examining?
I could try to take a crack at the last part. There is in the packet on page 49, there's a very, very basic scenario listed where with a 50% take rate, meaning half the people who are offered the ability to get broadband, take it, so 1,500 households would be eligible for, plus businesses would be eligible to get broadband if we were to do this model. So around half of that would be 750, maybe call it 800 or whatever. But then multiply that by the subscription fee of $110 a month times 12 months a year. And I think I don't have a calculator with me, but I think we estimated about $600,000 that would be profit. I'm sure there's probably other variables that are mixed into that, but you also have to subtract out the administration fee, which those are on the, sorry, go ahead.
No, and the ISP.
And the ISP costs, which those are in the model here, $374,000 annual cost. That's in this. So this is just rough math. Obviously you don't know until you offer it, but the vendor did say that as part, and Surtex would, if they were selected to be the vendor that does this project, before they broke ground, they would do a survey of the area to see who would be interested in getting broadband so that we would have better numbers to work with. But so we have thought about that model and that it could turn a profit, especially if it's in that range of, $500,000 a year or something. That's pretty substantial.
Right. Okay. And then if there's any way that, and thank you, that does clear, because again, I'm, looking at it and I saw the numbers there, but I'm just like, I'd like to get a more granularity on that as far as what the potential income or revenue would be. But as far as the other possibilities for using the funding to offset some of the crumbling foundation lost revenue, tax revenues, I don't know if that's something that we could look into, or at least try and broach that issue with whomever is necessary to get some answers.
We can certainly look into that. My immediate thoughts are that it really had nothing to do with a loss of revenue due to the COVID process, but we can certainly maybe speak with Joe Courtney's office and go through some of the other information that was provided for us, but I'm not so sure it would be allowed, because what happened, even though we did lose grand list, unfortunately, that just raised the mill rate. So we really didn't lose actual dollars. It was just the cost was reallocated to the public. So it would not show a dollar cost loss in the actual revenue. But I could certainly pose a question to see what I could find out.
Okay. I'm just trying to think outside the box, and tying it to people that were still at home during the period of time. And, I don't know. It's just one of those things where I just thought that we might be able to examine it. So,
That's very
okay.
good.
That's all I have at this point, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve?
Thank you, Madam Chair. One question regarding the broadband expansion. Was the chief kind of brought into that conversation about the expansion, and if that was ultimately considered by the council as a portion of the funds, would that project be delayed at all due to the firehouse rebuilding project?
For broadband?
Yeah, it said one of the options for the broadband was to connect to station 440, which I believe is one of the ones set for rebuild.
Not sure. So you're saying that 440 is not currently set up? Let's see, here it is.
That's at least my assumption based off of the new build proposal, that then they probably don't have a reasonable connection there, or that it's not as reliable. So I was just curious if the chief had provided input on that opportunity, or if that was why that was selected as an option for new build.
I'm not sure about that. I don't know that he specifically asked or didn't ask, for that to be included. It's just when we went with the vendor, they looked at an overview map of Tolland and pinpointed where, sort of a heat map of where people either worked or lived, and tried to say, if you did broadband here, here, and here, you would pick up 1,500 to 2,000 households, and that would be the best usage of this, what's technically short money for a project of this size. Just to throw, I don't think I mentioned this yet, we had them scope out the entire community to see what the cost of the whole town would be. It was $24 million. So this is roughly, 1/6 of the entire community. But even though it's 1/6 geographically, it's 1/3 of the households.
Okay, that makes sense. And then in regards to some of the water proposals, I think I saw Bev was with you guys tonight. I believe there was a project that has to be done over near the Country Butcher. Would that be a qualifying project, or would that have been considered as a expense under this?
Country Butcher?
Is there a project?
They're already hooked. I believe they're hooked up.
Oh no, I meant that wasn't there supposed to be like a repair to the bridge or something over near Torrey Road? I think it had been discussed that was something that was going to have to go out to discussion with CWC.
Here, is it repaired to the bridge, Torrey Road?
DOT is absorbing that cost.
Oh, okay.
To the town.
Okay. That's my main questions for now. And I was just going to say as an aside, I'm definitely in support of, in the very least, approving the reallocation for the Eastern Highland Health Districts. That does seem like a slam dunk.
Thank you, Steve. John?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Getting back to the extension of the water lines, if that was the direction we wanted to go, and I think, Scott, this is a question for you. How much does it cost for a residential tie-in or residential connection fee if those lines were extended? And would that be covered by these funds, or would that be something that the residents themselves would have to cover?
I believe that the infrastructure itself would fall under this American Rescue Plan, but not the connection fees. So you have not only our connection fees, but Vernon's connection fees and a contractor who would be responsible for tying in. On average, it costs somewhere in the neighborhood of $5,000 to $6,000 per house, which would be responsible.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question is in regard to the chart on page 38. The interim report is due August 31st. So my question is there any way that we can almost put, I don't want to use the word placeholder so much, but as far as the economic impact or loss that we may be incurring, and we won't really know that until the final numbers are done in September. My question is there a way that we could have a strong estimate by then to put in there? And then when the final report or the next report is due October 31st, we'll have solid numbers and we'll be able to give a definitive accurate accounting of that. I wonder if is that a possibility, or does everything need to be finalized here by August 31st as far as the amounts?
As I mentioned earlier, we can try to get a very close estimate. Certainly the final numbers would have to be what is in place after we get all the information in September. But what I can do is take what I have now and try to see if there's any sort of loss in revenue based on the formulas that they're requiring, because they have a growth factor that you have to include. They have the years you compare it to, the types of revenue, and unfortunately, the way they're doing it is they're not letting us just take one revenue source or one area and compare it to the previous pre-COVID area time span, excuse me. We have to do the overall revenues. So if the overall revenues, and we've increased taxes and collected all of it, that's going to be the problem that we'll face in being eligible. So I certainly can do, try to put something together and get it to you as quickly as possible before that, definitely, by the beginning of August.
Okay, very good. Thank you. That's all I have for now.
Okay. Brenda.
Thank you. Brenda Flusy here. John asked one of my questions about residential hookups, what they would be responsible for. Do we have any findings yet from DEEP about the wells? I'd like to know that, and the, since this right now, I don't believe it goes to the vineyards, correct? We don't have a map that shows that.
No, it's behind, on there. You can see charter, but
Well, I can see it, but we don't have one already created. So I would be interested in what that would cost, but I'd be more interested to find out if it's going to be viable if only a handful of people end up hooking up to it. It doesn't seem like it would be worth doing that. And I agree about the Eastern Highland Health District taking care of that. One of the items was for COVID expenditures for, I'm sorry, premium pay for essential workers. Does that include our first responders?
The answer is yes. That's not, I mean, we didn't put that model forward, but yes.
Was there any talk at all for taking a look at helping out our essential workers? I know they've probably incurred some personal expenses. They've incurred probably, stress, overtime, and other things that come along with dealing during a prolonged emergency situation. I'd be interested to find out what kind of input, and I don't expect that to be something that would preclude us from doing some of these other options. I think that would be an easy approval and worthwhile looking for. I mean, our essential workers carried us through this pandemic. They were out there while, we were, social distancing, et cetera. I would like to see something put forward for them. Thank you.
thank
I
you.
think we would need some guidance on what a proposal would look like. I mean, is it a uniform bonus? Is it we would need some kind of model for that. So.
Okay. Is that something that we would speak to our public safety officer about? I assume that there was more wear and tear, like you said, on the uniforms, maybe on, there was more personal expenses when it came to cleaning or PPD that I know most of that was covered by the fire department, but, the individuals were taking extra care when they came home to ensure that they were not impacting their families. And I don't know what those items would be, but I want to see our people taken care of.
Okay, I mean, that's something that we would probably need some guidance on, if you have an idea or something you'd like to, this is, council decides how this money is used. So
right.
If an idea on this, then please bring it forward.
I'll noodle on it.
Mike, do we know any other towns out there that have instituted a broadband plan like this? And have they been successful? What's their experience? Like you mentioned, $110 a month. That seems to be kind of par for what people are paying at Comcast or anything like that. So I'm interested to know if we have any experience information on towns who run their own broadband.
Lisa is going to answer this.
Currently, right now, the island of Block Island in Rhode Island is implementing the entire island with this new process and new technology. And so they are in the process of fast forward moving forward with this. I also know that the town of South Windsor is looking into it. I don't know where they stand. Last time I understood it, it was on hold, but they are looking into expanding their network as well at some point. I don't know of any other communities currently that are doing it, but
yeah,
I know they do, Surtex does do a lot of other communities, and we certainly can find out who else. But I do know Block Island is a big one right now that has a major undertaking going on.
And as to the price, their price is competitive. When we spoke with the vendor, I mean, I don't know what you all pay for internet and things, but it could be $150, $200. So this is actually less than, their price point is less than sort of what private sector is offering out there. So it's high speed. You know, think about businesses or people that are working from home that need high-speed internet, or kids that are schooling from home that need high-speed internet. So it is competitive.
So I guess my next question would then be, like, for instance, at the state level, we're looking at areas who do not have access right now. There are some areas in my towns that they don't have internet at all, or they don't have access to a type of broadband. Do we have any kind of areas in town that don't have access or have problematic access that we're looking to make sure that they get it? Or are we just looking at this from a revenue perspective on this is something that we'll be able to provide to businesses and then just to these select 1,500 homes, and then possibly generate revenue off of it going forward?
So
And that would imply that they would actually turn to our internet from where they are now.
right. So currently, the only fiber is the municipal fiber in town. So it connects the municipal assets to each other. So people right now are using their private sector vendors to get internet. So I don't know if there's no broadband in town or if it's just municipal broadband. But
It's Comcast has their own, but it's still through a
Frontier.
wiring for
Frontier.
the Frontier DSL kind of hookup. DSL is extremely slow. Comcast can be sketchy, but the type of fiber that we have is off of our fiber network, and just the speed would be extremely like lightning. And no comparison to what a cable company can provide, as well as DSL. Certainly when the vendor looked at it, he was trying to find the best bang for the buck that would try to make sure that it could substantiate the operating costs that would be involved. And for the amount of money that we had to put into it. There are some areas of town that do have some sketchy access to their internet provider. We don't know all of them, but just from experience of knowing people who live here in town, they've had issues with connectivity. Certainly in those areas, our fiber line does not run directly near those areas. What we were trying to do when designing this minimal amount was to try to use our fiber network that currently exists to make it less costly to go off of it, to cut off of it, slice off of it, whatever you want to call it, to the areas that could be served for the best value. There was something else.
Well, and also it's integrating what we currently have. So on the map that we provided, that the vendor provided, the white area on it is the overbuild on our existing. So right now, none of those households are on broadband or at least not on municipal broadband. All that's on broadband is our municipal assets. So almost like overnight, we would be able to get those connections. I don't know, it's overnight, but in a quick amount of time, those connections can be made. It's the green areas that are the new builds, and those are based on either business districts or areas of high density.
And
The vendor's willing to work with us, obviously, to scale down as needed. Go ahead, Lisa.
the other part of it as well, when we were also looking at the different areas of town, was that there are some lines for the electricity and all that are provided through underground. When you run into that situation, it becomes extremely costly to run the fiber underground, whereas this other areas that we have proposed in this particular proposal have the poles already. We have the licensing on most of the poles. It would be a fairly quick and easy process to make it happen, where the other one could be extremely prolonged and much more costly to do. At some point, though, the town may consider through maybe other sources such as the state to expand on this network and provide a complete public utility to the taxpayers and citizens, businesses, town.
So looking at this map, the white is where we currently have fiber laid.
Yes,
So we have it all the way down by Mountain Spring Road.
probably the fire station. I'm trying to think of what's down that way.
Training center.
The training, no,
Nope, that's not there. Mountain
Yeah.
Spring Road is, let's see. That's,
140, station 140. Over that way, I think.
that's over on Crystal Lake Road on 30. So
Yeah,
So what's up there?
And Mountain Springs right there,
yeah, possibly that could be.
my area.
yeah, that's,
Yeah, 30's that one.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where it cuts off right around there, right near the industrial zone, but not totally.
Yeah, the industrial zone, I think, is that green part towards the Hartford Turnpike area.
It's not currently served, so that would be
Right.
new build, but you would get all those businesses would get picked up by that.
Okay. All right, so I think since this is our first talk on this here, I think there's going to be a lot of questions everybody has that they would like to kind of get answered, and this is going to be on our next agenda. I think if what I have heard correctly, and I know I'm going to miss some, so please, if I jump in, if I don't catch all of them. Lisa, you're going to give us some sort of estimate on what you think the revenue portion could be off of the numbers that you have right now. From the broadband perspective, we're going to see if there's any other towns that have currently done this, or what their experiences have been. And we can look at the breakdown if we were to say we wanted to do part of this, but not all of this. And in looking at that, Mike, it looks like the first few sections here, general conditions, prefab, telecommunications building, are those things up there? Those are regardless of which overlay areas we pick, is that correct?
Yes,
So up through the 76,000, the townwide network engineer and feeder design, those are kind of sunk costs, correct?
yeah, they're baked in. You have to do those to do anything.
Okay, and then if we went through here and looked, the other pieces start at overlash to existing cable plant. Overlash, that's the existing, that's the white, correct? That would
Yeah.
be
Yes.
expanding that out to all the homes that are on the white.
Yes, yeah, those are all, like you said, those are all the ones that we have municipal lines, currently fiber. And so those would be we pick up those residences and businesses in those areas.
Okay, and then the new build down there are all of the green areas. So we can look at this and kind of go through it. The operating cost is what we would expect to see from from a yearly budgetary perspective.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, and that's on top of the build costs that are in there.
yeah, that's the 374
Yep.
annual cost. Yep, 1,000.
Okay, and then the subscription cost on here, to give us some breakdown on this so we know what we're looking at. The subscription fee is that 109 there. The internet 1G symmetrical, I don't understand what all of that stuff is.
Well, one gigabyte is like 10 times, maybe even more faster than what, I think a lot of private lines are 100 megabytes per second. This is 1 gig per second. So it's maybe 10 times as much. 10 times
Okay,
as
so
fast.
is that in addition to the 109?
Do you know, Lisa?
Let me see it.
That's the box on the left.
Okay,
So I'm on page 49.
I'm here. Okay. Yes, these fees here are what the the user would pay. So if they decided to go without a contract, just for the internet, sorry, my phone just picked up. You know, no contract would be $29.95, and so forth. There would be a one-time installation charge if they decided to have their phone go through the ISP as well. There'd be a porting charge to keep their number and to hook up the phone system. So these are the fees that the person would be paying for their subscription cost.
Okay, so if I'm looking at this correctly, the subscriber rate 1G symmetrical, that $25 for internet is the 1-year term amount.
Right.
Okay, so if they went with no contract, if they just wanted the internet and they didn't want the phone and all of that, their amount would be indicative of the pieces that they're picking here, correct?
Right.
Okay, then the capital expenditure is the 3.6 million, which would give us 35 miles of network, 1,278 homes. And then capital expenditure, the 250,000, these are the above the other, the 300.
These are all the things that they'll need to add to the system to make it be able to work.
Subscriber NTE, what is that? The $370 subscriber NTE?
I mean, the vendor would have.
Yeah, I would have to get that, but I think it's for the cost of the internet provider.
Okay, I'd like to understand the numbers that they have all on here. I don't know if it makes sense for somebody to come in and explain all of it to us, but I think we're gonna need to understand all of this to be able to make a decision, at least from my perspective.
We could certainly ask them to come in. We didn't want to bring someone in tonight until we were sure that this might be something you would be looking at seriously, or at least considering for sure. So we could certainly bring somebody in from Surtex that could definitely provide better information regarding these numbers.
And would this have to go out for an RFP?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Yes,
so there might be other providers who are doing it, because I'm just concerned with the August 31st date. In order for us to make a decision, we're gonna need all of this information. So I respect the fact that we didn't want to bring them in because we were just talking about it now, but I think, Mike, we need to kind of move quickly. You have one more meeting before you're gone. And then we have 1 month after that to lock all of this down. So making sure we understand all the documents that are in front of us so we can make an educated decision. If we can get somebody in to talk about that, I'd appreciate that. And then from the sewer perspective, Scott just went through, just to do the green over to Old Post, it would be about $2 million in cost. Scott, I didn't know if there was any thought to moving anywhere other than just the green in Old Post, or is that just the area that we're concentrating on right now from a sewer perspective?
That was the one that the town manager had kind of thought would be a good starting point. You realize everything has to eventually get to Old Post Road because that's where it gets pumped from there all the way down Old Post down to Route 30, and then it goes to Vernon. Anything in the industrial park goes into the Gerber Road pump station and gets pumped cross country into Vernon. It would, if we were going to try to expand, it would kind of make sense to shoot for an area where we can tie into existing infrastructure instead of trying to run a whole new system.
So would it be any more cost effective to continue down Old Post to catch the Wood Lake there and the old Cat Hole Road over by the high school, going down that area? Would that be a better spend for the dollars?
Well, on Old Cat Hole, you know, the high school is hooked up, but that's
Exactly.
that's a force main all the way from the high school all the way down Old Cat Hole until it gets to Rhodes Road. Then it goes gravity down to the Gateway pump station, which is across the street from Big Y.
Correct. I'm just looking at that area there, like from the perspective of where to go. If we're looking at continuing down Old Post to the Woodfields and like the Farmbrook Drive, Old Cat Hole, Center, that area there, it's kind of like that would be completing the loop over to the high school. I didn't know if that would make sense, if that would be more cost effective than just catching those 10 houses on the green and then Old Post Village.
And I understand what you're saying, but we would definitely have to put, in order to pick up like Center Road, everything would have to go back to the low point, wherever it is. If we say the starting point is going to be Center Road, we have to go back to that point as the low point for the starting of the force main.
Mhm.
Alongside that force main, you would have to run, you should run another pipe going back to the pump station, and that's the one that the homes would be able to tie into, because you can't tie into a force main. You can tie into a low pressure force main, which is what we have coming up 195. We have a 2-inch coming up 195, which places like Dunkin' Donuts, Subway, those places can tie into because they have a specialized check valve on them. But the larger force mains, the high pressure mains, you can't tie into those. That's under constant pressure.
How about the other side of this map then, down by the industrial center and Hartford Turnpike, that whole area up there? Would we be looking at a possible more bang for our buck if we were to focus down on the Gerber pump station?
Up in Industrial Road East, I believe it is, and Gerber Road, all of that is already sewered.
Oh, no,
Everything
I mean the further up Hartford Turnpike, where it's not here, if I'm looking at this
Yeah,
map
it's,
correctly.
that's
Arnold
um,
Drive, Harriet Drive, all of that
yeah.
stuff.
Steve Williams, who has some property that he's been working on just up from the Extra Mart.
Mhm.
His plan is to put in 40 units up there. He's not sure whether he's doing 8 units of 5, but they're apartment buildings. And he's going to go cross country. He's going to actually cross Route 30. And then he's got to deal with the homeowners across the street so he can go all the way over and tie into Route 74, because that's less costly than for him to continue running the
Down Hartford
sanitary
Turnpike.
sewer. Yep.
Yeah,
The car wash actually has their own force main. It goes all the way over to 74. It runs along Sand Hill Road.
Sand Hill Road, yeah.
Yeah.
So are we saying that that would not be any more cost effective to try to loop in some of that area, those businesses over there up on the top part of Hartford Turnpike, say up through like Rockville Equipment or anything like that? Would that be more cost effective or less cost effective than trying to catch the plan that we have right now, which is the Old Post Village?
I'm going to say it'd be less cost effective because there aren't that many opportunities, if you will. Not everybody's going to need to tie in, and knowing what it costs to tie in, especially for a business, it's more than it is for residents. Along with the fact that any work we do out on the state road, they have very strict repaving policies, where if we went out there and dug the trench, they would make us mill from curb to curb. Whereas you can see up on the green, they didn't do anything like that themselves.
I can't believe we're even contemplating digging up the frickin' green.
I know it. Well, that's why
I'm gonna have nightmares about that. I'm gonna have
Yeah, well-
nightmares just saying it.
Well, when you mentioned Old Cat Hole, that was the first thing I thought of. That stuff's still warm.
We can't win. The state doesn't do anything systematically. All right, I'm just looking to see if there's something that would be more cost effective than $2 million for, 11 homes and,
Right.
and the museums and stuff like that. I can't see Hicks in red and white being able to afford to tie into this either. So, I know you understand, you don't think it's going to be the biggest bang for the buck. So I guess I'm looking for alternatives on where we could expand the sewer. That would be more money, would be more bang for the buck, because I know one of our big down points from a business perspective is that our sewer rates are so high compared to all the towns around us. So if there's a way to loop more people into the sewer and drop that per rate down, that's a good one-time spend for a long-term return. So if maybe Mike, if we can look at seeing if there's any other areas that would be a good bang for the buck from a sewer perspective, I'd be interested in seeing something like that. And then from the water perspective, let me get to that map now. Like I said, I'm not opposed to the 140 portion of bringing it to the fire station there, but I would like to understand what it would look like to expand this, the water lines out to the vineyard area where we're having all of those issues with potable water and anything along the way there, just to get an idea, or that as one option. And second, if there are any other areas that we could expand water that would help us from a long-term perspective, other than just the portion to 140 and Crystal Lake Road. Got all that, Mike? And then from what Brenda said, I would say what she was talking about there for like the equipment and stuff like that. If any of that, I would assume that the majority of that stuff from PPE and all of that would be covered by FEMA and the FEMA dollars that we had. But if there's anything that wasn't reimbursed or missed, perhaps we can look at that. And then maybe a count of all of our first responders. And I know that there was overtime and everything else paid for that stuff, but if there's any other reimbursement stuff out there that did not get captured under FEMA, that would be interesting to know also. Steve?
Thank you, Madam Chair. One other thing I was gonna possibly request is maybe, I know it seems like there is a few times where we're mentioning the fire stations. It'd be good to maybe get like a one-pager from the chief about priorities, if there's anything we're considering strongly, like the water expansion to 140 or broadband to 440, if they had any preference or any preference over those. Just additionally, in terms of Councilor Falusi's mentioning of the bonus pay for first responders and frontline workers, I'd be curious to know if any other communities have taken this route at all with their firefighters, EMTs, individuals who kept the town hall open throughout the pandemic and so forth.
I don't think it was for like essential workers at the front line, such as the staff that was here, paying the bills, placing the orders, doing what had to be done. But I think it's more for the EMTs, the personnel, things like that. I think they were pretty, and health department personnel. I think the Q&A that they provided to us had detail that it didn't allow for that. Certainly something for you all to consider.
No, you're still muted.
Sorry.
There you go.
I think we gave you guys quite a few things to look into and make sure this is back on the agenda for the next meeting. I think we're going to need this on the agenda for every meeting until we decide and submit the paperwork on August 31st. All right, that gets us to 8.5, appointments to vacancies on various municipal boards and commissions.
Looks like you have a couple of reappointments tonight. Tolland Nonprofit Housing Corporation and Agriculture Commission. The slate's on the page 56.
Right. Steve Jones, I make a motion that we approve the reappointments as listed on page 56 for the Tolland Nonprofit Housing Corporation, John Beck, for a term of 7/1/2021 to 7/1/2026, and Roland Cardin at 7/1/2021 to 7/1/2026, and then also approve the reappointment of Archie Tanner for 7/9/2021 to 7/9/2024.
Lulu, I'll second it.
Sorry, I'm on mute. Any discussion? All those in favor? Brenda?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Lou?
Aye.
Kurt?
Aye.
I'm an aye, so that's unanimous. Thank you very much. That gets us to old business. 9.1, consideration of a resolution for town council to conduct hybrid public meetings until April 30th, 2022.
So yes, this is pretty much the second time we've talked about this, but the last time we left off with this business item, we had an overview on Executive Order 7B, and which has now expired on June 30th. And also how State Senate Bill 1202 sort of picked up from where the executive order left off. Other boards and committees have met since our last meeting. And we have a little bit of a random sampling of 2 boards are going fully remote and 3 are going fully hybrid. That's the numbers as of tonight. Obviously, as boards continue to meet, that, we'll keep a list of that, but council had asked just to know, what other boards were doing, but you also had asked us to try out the owl camera tonight from the conference room, and it seems to be working okay. And the Planning and Zoning Commission did it last night and hybridly, so it worked from what Councilor Falusi said earlier, it worked well. So I guess it's time for council to decide what it would like to do. And there was a straw poll at the last meeting where I think it was 5 people were in favor of hybrid, but obviously that's non-binding, so it's up to what you want to do now for future.
So which boards, Mike, want to go fully remote and which ones want to do fully hybrid?
Birch Grove's fully remote, Conservation Commission's fully remote, Economic Development is hybrid, Planning and Zoning is hybrid, Zoning Board of Appeals is hybrid.
Okay. So we talked about this last time and we did a straw vote. Since then, I've come up with just a few questions on procedure and such. So if we go with the hybrid model, I guess I'm wondering, and Mike, you might need to help kind of give us some guidance on this, if we should have a sort of kind of like a sign up or something. So if it's a meeting and all the counselors decide I'm going to stay home for this meeting and not go in, but then there's public in the chambers, I'm assuming that the majority of staff would be in chambers, or how do we know if staff's going to be hybrid or in chambers? So I'm wondering from a logistical perspective, if we would have to kind of sign up, I'm going to be in chambers, I'm going to be hybrid, et cetera, between the elected or appointed officials and the staff.
I don't know. I think the language exists in the implementer bill, and I didn't bring it with me, but I think that if you have a quorum of council remote, I don't know that it's considered a hybrid meeting anymore. I'd have to double check the implementer bill. There's somewhere in that section that said that if you have, I want to say that it says if you don't have a quorum of counselors in person, then I don't know that the public is supposed to be there in person. I think they're only supposed to be there if council is majority in person. You might want to just double check the implementer bill for that language. It's in that same section, which was referenced in the last meeting. I don't know if anybody can pull it up quickly, but
I think I
but
might
yeah,
have
that-
it up. I
yeah.
hate that bill, but I think I have it up.
I forgot what line, we had it in the last packet. I can look in the minutes to see if I can.
It's like
help you.
6,500 or something like that. It was like a ridiculous number. Blah, 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 blah. No, so that's 65.
Line 6650 and 7006. You might want to just check line 7006. Let me see if I can pull it up. on my phone.
6650. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. That's caucusing. We don't need caucus. Public records, executive session. I don't see anything specific to that so far. Quorum of the members of a public agency who are present at the event which has been noticed and conducted as a meeting of another public agency under the provisions shall not be deemed to be holding a meeting of the public agency of which they are members as a result of their presence at such event. But that doesn't really,
I'm trying to pull it up on my phone, but there's a provision in there somewhere about having a quorum of members in person.
that's what I'm looking to see. So I think we need to understand that from the perspective of who will be there and who will not be there. And then Steve, I was thinking, I don't know if it makes sense. Like Mike, I see you've got the TV on there right now with the Zoom meeting on it. So somebody's going to have to maintain when we get to public participation, merging public comment in chambers and then public comment on Zoom. So I don't know if it makes sense for chair, vice chair, somebody to be hybrid and somebody to be in person, or just one person to control, like, would it be the chair who would control the Zoom still? Like, I'm planning on I'm gonna need to bring my iPad or something in so I can keep track of admitting people into the rooms, because I don't want to have an expense of having to have another staff person there that we have to pay for to let people into rooms and lower hands and all that other stuff. So any guidance on that right now?
Well, I can tell you it's not easy to keep looking at the TV if I have to face this way to see the owl camera. So if I turn my head this way to look at the TV.
Yeah,
you can't-
owl goes crazy.
Yeah, it would be a two-person team, I feel like. I think we need somebody else paying attention to the screen while someone else is talking. That's just from tonight to see what, that's what's happening. Plus, I know sometimes it's tough the way, if you're in the room, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of hard to see if you're trying to read lips, for example. It's hard to see what people are saying. So that might be something to consider.
Yeah, and I can't see your lips right now, like from where you're talking right now. It's not even relevant because I can't see. So, okay, Brenda?
Sorry, it took me a second to unmute. So Brenda Falusi here. Some things to consider. The in-person people last night at the planning and zoning, they did have their nameplates out, but remote people cannot read the nameplates. And if, like, I know everybody who's, in the meeting there sitting around the table. However, if I was like an applicant or a member of a resident, business owner that came in, I wouldn't know who was speaking, sitting here remotely, listening and watching the meeting, unless each of you identify yourselves prior to speaking, just like we do on a normal Zoom meeting. That seems cumbersome, but I don't know a way around that. Let's see. The other thing is, gosh, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought, but that's something that we have to consider for the, I forgot the rest. I'm so sorry.
All right, we can come back to you.
I'll come back.
Yep. Steve?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was going to comment that if we do the hybrid format, we stick with that, I would probably try and make an effort to come in and bring my laptop and possibly hook up via Zoom. So I'd still be on camera for Zoom or be able to monitor that. So I don't know if that would cause any particular technical issues on the big screen in terms of seeing the OWL camera look at me and have my Zoom camera on, but just want to make a point of that. And then one question I had, just trying to look through some of the language of the bill. If we were to stick with the hybrid format, and then obviously as we're kind of going through over the next few months, the town manager search, and we have to go into any kind of executive session, would that be fully remote, or do we have to do hybrid as a format, and then basically open up the town hall and then immediately close the chambers to the public for that purpose? I know in the past we've done it in the town manager's office, but I assume for if we need to do executive session for any personnel reasons or other reasons, we probably have it in the chambers and have that whole setup based on who is and isn't available.
Yeah, I think executive sessions are excluded. They're called out in the bill here, so that wouldn't be open to the public. So if you had a Zoom meeting, just as you've had executive sessions via Zoom, but if you had some in-person participants that were counselors, but not, or invited members, that would be allowable. I think that's in the bill. I have the bill up on my phone now as well, so I'm trying to read it quickly.
Okay.
That's not a small place to read it.
Yeah, I was just looking at it too on my laptop, just trying to find any mention of the word executive session, just to see if there's any exemptions for us to utilize that, or if we'd be able to manage that. But I am still in favor of hybrid kind of being the first option going forward. It seems like it worked pretty well for planning and zoning. So, but I am also willing to come in to help out with managing the queue of in-person, or if we need to swap back and forth, Chair Minuccio, in terms of having somebody cover in-person public participation or the Zoom chat functions. And
yeah, I'm just trying to think of making sure we do it in a way that we're not going to be incurring extra costs to the town, to try to keep track of it. And it is a lot. I know I've heard from other people in other towns who've done the hybrid that it's a lot to say, like, the town manager has to maintain it or somebody has to maintain it. So that's just a concern. Lou?
Oh, and Madam Chair, I just want to say, Mike Rosen here.
Yeah.
Line 7035 does exclude the executive session. So any public agency that conducts a meeting other than an executive session or special meeting, et cetera, that it does call it out that you can conduct that meeting without having to make the accommodations for the public.
Yeah, do you see anything on here that says that you have to have so many people in public?
Not yet, but I'll keep looking.
Okay, because yeah, I'm struggling trying to find that there. Lou, you're next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I mean, I have some of the same concerns regarding the ability for us to conduct an effective meeting while trying to, one, take a look at our agenda and our notes and keep track of the discussions, as well as then monitoring the discussion boards and having everything else, having the town manager or having somebody else try and divide their attention as far as what's going on and being discussed, the important business being discussed within the chambers and by the council. I mean, I was originally fully for hybrid, but I'm concerned now because of some of these issues. I think the only real true option would be is to have a staff member that we'd have to pay overtime or a person that's dedicated to these types of meetings full time, as one of the responsibilities to cover this. Because just seeing how we're struggling right now, where you've got the OWL going there, we're trying to look stuff up online to see what see certain language. We're trying to keep things organized. And if it's a meeting where we have to allow people in and there's going to be public discussion on different issues, I think it creates a lot of issues. And I think that the only way to really effectively be able to do that is if we had somebody that was assigned to assist us in it, similar to what we have with our monitor, with our recorder, that's something else that, I mean, very often it's brought up. Well, what's the additional expenses and what's the additional burden to the staff? That's a concern that I have, and I think that's something that it is going to be in order for us to be able to conduct an effective meeting. That is going to be an additional burden on a staff member, or or force us to pay a staff member to take care of this for us. So those are my concerns. Thank you.
All right, I wrote that down. Thank you, Lou. Brenda, I'm gonna go back to you. Did you remember what you forgot?
Yes, sorry, thank you. Do we have a list yet of boards or commissions that are going to create conflicts of in-person or hybrid meetings? Because we only have one room set up for this right now, and two in the near future. I know we only have 5 responses yet. The other reason why I'm bringing up the conflict of times, scheduling, is if we do decide we need an additional person taking care of these, I don't know, secretarial roles, I don't know what to call them. We can't just have obviously one person. We're going to need multiple people if there's multiple meetings happening at the same time. I believe that we can figure out a way to hand out the responsibilities and be equitable in that, both to the participating public and to us. And the last thing is I want to make sure that when we do this resolution, that we do it in such a way, if we say that we're going to be hybrid or fully remote or whatever, that we can change our mind in case things change. If we feel, I don't want to say we're going to do hybrid and then find out we want to do fully remote because something happened, and not be able to do it.
I did ask that already. We can change it. We're not locked in until April. If we want to change it, I believe we can, correct, Mike?
Yes, as long as you take a formal vote.
Yep.
Right.
So,
I was hoping there was a way we could do it so we didn't have to take a formal vote, because maybe between having this meeting and the next meeting, we decide we have to, change the format. How are we going to do that unless we have a formal vote? You know what I mean?
I think we're bound by the legislation to have a formal decision. Like, we have to decide one of the 3. I don't think we can have it in
Got it.
flux based on the legislation as it's written, unfortunately. Mike, would you agree with that?
So a lot of that I think I mentioned this at the last meeting, that's more to do with our charter about having regular versus special meetings. You're supposed to post an annual calendar of your meetings, your regular meetings, and where they're going to be located. So if you switch back and forth between remote and in-person and back and forth, you might find yourself having to have special meetings rather than regular meetings. So that was part of the issue, more so than the legislation.
Okay, thank you. Kurt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to kind of throw my 2 cents in here, I'm still fully on board with the hybrid model. I attended the planning and zoning meeting last night, as well as Ms. Falusi, and I was very pleased with how it went. I think it was the entire planning and zoning commission was in person, if I remember correct, and multiple people online. Things seemed to go very smoothly. Brenda alluded to this earlier, that there'd be some changes or some things to get used to make things work smoother. But I think this is something that could absolutely work for the town council going forward. Now, I don't want to speak for Mr. Corcoran. I think he was the one running the show there, and he seemed to be able to handle everything with sharing screens and letting people in without too much of an issue from what I could see. So I feel pretty comfortable with the workload for staff, at least on the town council level, and the access and usability of this that it provides is a clear win for me. So.
Okay, so you're thinking then that in this case, that in our meetings, it would be the town manager who would let people in and say, so-and-so from the public has their hand raised or something like that?
Yes, yes.
That's pretty much what they did last night, is what you're saying?
That was my understanding, yes.
Okay. All right, so you're still hybrid. Hybrid, Steve, you're hybrid. Lou, I think you were hybrid. You haven't made up your mind. You're wobbling your head a little bit. Okay, John.
Thank you, Madam
Brenda,
Chair.
I'm sorry, Brenda, I didn't get a hard and fast from you yet.
I'm hybrid,
Okay.
but I can guarantee that every meeting that I will be at, I will be sitting at home here comfortably. So.
John?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I wasn't at the last meeting, but I did go over the minutes and I did watch the video. And I noticed the straw poll. So my straw poll was hybrid first, and then fully remote last, in person second, fully remote last. So I'm still feeling the same way. I think we can manage the hybrid. We may run into some glitches here and there, but I'm fully on board with hybrid. I think we've seen participation, a lot more participation in this, so that's why I'm for it.
Okay. So Mike, with what Brenda just said, is that okay? Is that an issue? Is that something that we need to talk about? You know, if we have a counselor who plans on being fully remote all the time, is that Brenda, I'm not trying to single you out or anything. I'm just asking, like, is that allowable from the perspective of an elected official on the board if we say we're going hybrid? Because the main point, I think, of the hybrid was for the public. So I just want to make sure, like, if we have two counselors who say, I'm gonna stay at fully remote, is that okay and allowable?
I don't know. I can answer that question. I mean, I think you've got to look to either the charter or what the role of an elected official is in town. I mean, I'm certainly not the judge of that, so I don't think I can answer that question. But I think the legislation does allow for people to participate remotely. So that's the best I can say, is that if it's allowable, there's probably nothing wrong with it. Yeah.
Okay. So do we need to review the charter just to make sure? I just want to make sure we're not stepping on any toes in that, because my understanding from what was done with the legislation was that it had to do with the public participation piece of it. So I just want to make sure that we're good and we're in line with, if we have somebody who wants to stay home permanently, or somebody who, like, if it's you know, I have a cold this week, I'm going to stay home. That's okay and allowable. Because I know the full in-person was that everybody had to be in person, but only elected officials had the opportunity to have a Zoom call in. The public did not. And then, of course, the full remote, everybody just called in, and then the hybrid mix between the two.
Yeah. And that's it. And when you say permanently, don't forget, you're only talking until April 30th, so it's not permanent. So,
Right.
So 22, right, which is, you know.
Okay.
So there's nothing wrong with it, because that's what the bill allows for, accommodation.
Okay. All right. So then that's a majority. Lou, did you make up your mind, or we have a majority anyway, if you don't want to throw one out there?
Right. It really doesn't matter. I mean, I'm so torn on the issue, but I could support hybrid. I'm just concerned, like I said, about the making sure that we have it staffed appropriately so that we can ensure that there's a sufficient time and devoted to the discussions, and not people having to split their time between taking a look as far as who's coming in, who wants to speak, everything else like that. So.
Yeah. My other question though, Mike, that I do have definitely is if we can confirm whether or not we need a quorum for in-person. I can't find that. I don't know if you found that. And secondly, what about the dual recordings? So are we going to have Lisa come back in to record, to have it on CBC? And then that tape is going to be on CBC. And then you have the Zoom recording, which we're recording right now, which will then be a recording of just the people who are on Zoom, and then that's stored someplace separately. Do we have to maintain both recordings?
I don't think it makes sense to have the camcorder any longer, because as long as the CVC representative is here, and I know there is one tonight, they're recording everything that's going on Zoom and in the room. You know, anybody else who's in the room in the future would be picked up by the owl camera, whether they're sitting over here or in the audience. So I don't know that you would have the camcorder any longer, because CBC is able to pick up this live feed directly from Zoom. And Nick is here tonight. He's been here for the last year and a half. So, you know, it works. This works this way. And also the camcorder probably wouldn't be able to pick up those on the remote.
Right, they wouldn't. That's why I was saying we would have dual recordings. Can we test that? Can somebody go stand where the public would be and just speak, so we can see how that works with the owl?
Who wants to do that one? Lisa's gonna volunteer to do it.
Lisa looks pretty comfy in my chair there. Keep it warm for me, Lisa.
We were trying to space out in the room, and be able to see the different.
Yeah, the different angles.
Okay, so I'm kind of in the middle of the room right now. Has the camera moved yet?
No, it has not. It's still looking at Mike.
So I'm over here and.
Yep,
Oh,
there
there
it
I-
is. Yep.
There you go.
So
All
we're
right.
good.
Now we can see you.
Sort of in the middle where, if I come right over here,
But if you're not talking,
yeah, I'm normally, if someone's speaking, this is where they normally stand.
Right.
But if someone's not speaking, then they probably would not show up on the owl camera.
Right, and if you and I are having a back and forth, it split screens us, which is what it's doing right
Yep.
now.
Right now you're split screen. I've got Mike and Lisa on the screen.
Yeah, but now I'm speaking, so now it's back to me. And then if
Yep.
Bev wants to speak, Bev's across the street over here. I don't know if you want to try and talk in Bev, see if it makes it.
definitely.
How you doing, Bev?
Hi, how are you? How are you?
Oh, there you be.
The only thing I was gonna say about the cable TV, it sometimes ends before the council meeting ends.
Yep.
Maybe you could-
So that wouldn't be a problem anymore with this. So if we're not doing the CVC, the video camera recording, we would be okay.
Right.
Brenda?
Yeah, I guess one thing that we're going to have to pay attention to is when we do have residents sitting out in those seats, is the owl camera going to pick up them arriving and leaving? Is it going to pan over there every time it hears a noise, someone talking? How intrusive is that going to be with it panning around and possibly getting us seasick if it's picking up noise from those chairs? That's just an observation.
Likely that's true, yes. And you're probably right that it's good at picking up, that's what its job is, unfortunately. Even if I mute, so if I mute on the Zoom here, and I'll do that just as a test for a second, but the owl's gonna keep moving, so watch this.
Oh. Yep.
So there you go. See, you kept following me even though I was walking around.
All right, well, we're gonna have some fun with an owl for the next few months. All right, so I guess then from the straw count and that, Steve, I think the if there's a resolution in here for this, the resolution would be that the town council goes hybrid.
Yes, there is. So if there's no other discussion, it's on page 61. I can go ahead and read that into the record.
Any other discussion? No, all right, Steve.
All right, Steve Jones, I'd make a motion that be it resolved by the Tolland Town Council that it hereby approves conducting hybrid meetings until April 30th, 2022, approved by the Tolland Town Council on July 13th, 2021.
Brenda Felucci, I second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Sorry. Brenda?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
John? Lou?
Aye.
It was hesitant. Kurt?
Aye.
Okay, and I have an aye, so that is unanimous. Thank you all. That gets us to 10, report of the town manager.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Mike Rosen, Town Manager. So I'm in the middle right now of doing a lot of the performance reviews for the staff that are reporting to the Town Manager. So I'm working on that over the next week or so. So it's been good. And the only other obviously piece of news which is in the packet, and as I've mentioned a few times now publicly, is that I am moving on from Tolland. I do have an opportunity in Massachusetts. So my last day in the office is August 5th. And it's been a pleasure to work here for the past 2 years and getting the town through COVID and all the other myriad of projects and staff changes we've had and everything. So it's been great working here. And, I do have one more council meeting before I depart. I just want to thank the staff again for everything that they've, given me, their time and attention and all of their dedication. And so I do have one more meeting, so I'm not going to necessarily say my goodbyes yet, but just to let everybody know that I've got about a month left at this point. Thank you.
We'll be sure to keep you nice and busy for that month, Mike. Steve.
I know it's not your last meeting, Mike, but just want to extend, the well wishes again for your future endeavors, and just thank you for your time and service over the past couple of years and throughout, for some of us, our first terms serving on this council. So thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, that gets us to 11, adoption of minutes.
Sorry, just one moment. Just popping between screens for the minutes or for the agenda. There we go. All right, Steve Jones, I'd entertain a motion to adopt the minutes as laid out for June 22nd, remote special meeting, June 22nd, remote regular meeting, and June 30th, remote special meeting minutes.
Brenda Felucci, I will second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Brenda?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Kurt?
Aye.
Loop that time. Lou?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Gets us to 12, correspondence to council.
Good evening, Brenda Felucci again. So we had just a couple emails to council. The first was a request from a resident about what COVID funds we had spent already, and that was answered by the town manager. We received an email on town politics and the appropriateness of a political party mascot on town hall property. And we received an email about a recommendation for how to conduct the town manager search.
Thank you. I do not have anything tonight for the chairperson's report. That gets us to communications and petitions from council persons. I have to write this if we have them, so it might take a little longer than me typing. Brenda.
Hi, again, Brenda Felucci. So for, I want to say thank you for opening Crandall Lake, having it open from 10 to 6 every day of the week. That is absolutely awesome. When I was there taking a picture of the signage, I realized that there might be something missing, especially with some new developments in the state of Connecticut. With the new law pertaining to recreational use of marijuana, we have signage that prohibits alcohol and prohibits smoking. And I don't know if that covers vaping and recreational use of marijuana. Now, of course, I would assume that it would cover smoking of marijuana, but there are other forms. And the legislation I saw covered, you can't use it at state parks, but it doesn't say anything about municipal parks, unless I missed it, and I could have. So I think that's something, there's a hole there we need to address, especially since many of our parks are used by, sports teams that are school-age children. So I think we need to come up with some wording, on how to cover that so that it is not used at our open spaces, public places, etc. The next thing is, where was it? So one of the residents wrote in about having the mascot and asked for us to have a discussion on that. And I think it's worthwhile. I give points for finding a way to get the mascot right outside of town hall. That was very creative. It is a very creative topiary. But to have a mascot on town property, I don't know if we're breaking any rules on that. So I think that's something to take a look at. And that is all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Lou.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First off, I just wanted to say, give my best wishes to Mr. Rosen. that it has been, it's unfortunately, it's been a short period of time that we've had a chance to work with you, but having worked with you in the Emergency Operations Center and having worked with you during a good portion of the pandemic when we initially started, that your leadership over there was outstanding, that you were over there assisting in whatever way possible and definitely leading the town through a very difficult time. It was definitely my privilege of work with you over there. I wish you well. That I just hope everything goes well for you over there. With regard to some of the issues, I was actually going to follow up with that email that we did receive on the topiary that I would caution, because per the email that was sent to the town council, and then a follow-up where I did respond to it directly, saying that and pointing out the fact that the topiary there, first off, it's on TRTC adapted spot area, and that the topiary is actually a memorial to Sue Erickson, who was a solid member of our community, who that she spent beyond being a member of the TRTC and an officer there. She was on the Planning and Zoning Board for a period of over 30 years, and that she was also very involved in the community as well as with the Congregational Church, very involved in there to the point where they have a memorial scholarship set up in her name. The response to my email that I sent to this person was that, well, we should consider restricting political speech, which we can't. Political speech is one of those protected speeches where if we do that, then that means that it applies that where do you draw the line, essentially, where what I may see or what somebody may see as a simple topiary that in honor of somebody that who is a member of the TRTC, and it's not meant to be a political statement, but more of a memorial statement, that that what I may see is acceptable may be political speech to somebody else, and vice versa. So we can't look at making restrictions based upon that and someone's interpretation, because then that's where, again, we fall into the issue of First Amendment issues and restricting what is already been accepted by the Supreme Court as acceptable political speech. So that's where I would caution us to even consider something like that, because then we are looking at restricting issues such as that on areas that really are being operated and maintained by other organizations. So that's my comment on that. But that I think that that's something that we've addressed appropriately, and that we don't need to have further discussion or further issues regarding that. But again, I would just like to focus on Mr. Rosen and appreciate all the time and effort you put forward, and look forward to hopefully having you here to at least assist us, or having you leave good notes for whoever may be following you up. It's going to be big shoes to fill in such a short period of time. So thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Steve?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to make a note. I forgot to indicate in my report on the last Conservation Commission meeting that they received a grant from AARP for the Wannet project. So they have additional funds on top of what was raised through patronicity. And then just also want to make a note that the Conservation Corps is looking for several individuals to help out with a couple projects. So if you reach out through the Conservation Commission to the Corps, they're looking for individuals on Saturdays and Wednesdays that are outlined in an email out to some of the Conservation Corps members for July and August to help with work on the pollinator garden, as well as the labyrinth and celestial rocks, or celestial clock, I should say. So I just wanted to throw that out there for any residents that are interested to spend some volunteer time or get engaged in that. So reach out to the commission for a chance to help out there.
Thank you. I wrote that down. And then Mike, with what Brenda mentioned, I think we need to get on an agenda coming up. We need to review the 1201, SB 1201, because in that language, a town has the option to opt out of allowing recreational marijuana to be sold in their town. I don't know if that falls under planning and zoning to figure out, or if that falls under town council to figure out. But I think there needs to be discussion at some point on whether or not Tolland is going to allow recreational marijuana to be possibly distributed, grown, sold, etc. Again, I'm not 100% sure where that falls on which area, but I think we need to look at that and see. Okay, that gets us up to 15. Public listed participation, any subject within the jurisdiction of the town council, 3-minute limit. If you are on a device, you can raise your hand. If you're on a phone, it's *9. When I call on you, please state your name and address for the record. Does anybody have anything they would like to discuss tonight? Okay, not seeing anything, then Steve, you want to move to adjourn?
Sure thing. Steve Jones, I would make a motion to adjourn at, I think it's about to change over to 9:36 p.m.
Kurt Shutter, I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Brenda?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Lou?
Aye.
Kurt?
Aye.
I'm an aye, so that's unanimous. Thank you all. Have a good night. See you soon.